I have this idea of Andrew Mason at the NFL scouting combine watching the drills and pointing. See? I see that. I see that. I see you are here with me. Cecil, Lammey, Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. And it is time to talk about the Denver Broncos. It is time to talk about talent that is available to them. And time to talk about the scouting combine. Good day to everyone out there, and good afternoon to everyone out there as the NFL combine rages on. I haven't heard from Mace today yet because yesterday he did reach out before the show and was like, I don't think I'll be able to make it because they have defensive linemen going through drills. And I was like, light and sweet, baby. My whole rule in life, and really no matter what happens, unless it's like super important, then obviously you know how to react. But most of the time it's just like light and sweet, man. Light and sweet. I'm doing Denver sports tonight again tonight. I'm doing it solo. Everyone asks me, is that okay? I'm like, light and sweet, baby. Like light and sweet. Like, it's fine. And I don't have time or the calories to stress over that kind of stuff. So hopefully Mace jumps on board today. If not, light and sweet, baby. He's at the combine. He's putting in the work. I'm here with you now. We are talking about the Denver Broncos now, and we are fortunate enough to get to read the pieces coming from the combine from one Andrew Mason. And the Draymond Jones conversation is going to kind of dominate today's conversation. Now, things change pretty quickly in the NFL. And if we rewind to, let's say, a week ago, there were some really good feelings around Draymond Jones staying with the Denver Broncos. There were some numbers being floated out there, 16, almost 17 million annually seemed to be what was floated again a week ago, just a week ago before the start of the combine. There was positivity around Draymond Jones and the fact that the Broncos would work hard to keep him on their roster, something that I believe they need to do. They're not going to use the franchise tag or what have you, but like they need to keep concentrated on getting Draymond Jones a long-term deal, get him happy, get him here, all those sorts of things. Like that's something that needs to happen stat right away for the Broncos, because like you look at this situation with Draymond Jones, there's just nobody like him out there. Really, there's nobody like him in free agency, and I'm writing the defensive ends today. I did defensive tackles already. That's at denversports.com. You can read it. If the Broncos want to upgrade the D-line, the options are limited in free agency. That just came out yesterday, talking about interior defensive linemen, defensive tackles, basically. So we're looking at now defensive ends. That's what I'm writing today. You've got some options and some names, interesting, that you would think could be options for the Denver Broncos, but there's really not a Draymond Jones out there. And so a week ago, there was positivity around the fact that Draymond Jones would be staying, that they would get a long-term deal done, that they didn't need to use the franchise tag. That still seems to be the case with Draymond Jones, but the tone has kind of changed. Now, this is something to not be alarmed with, in my opinion. This is kind of just standard status quo. And the longer that I do this, the easier I'm able to read these sorts of things. Again, I could be totally wrong. They could be a zillion dollars apart and it's never going to happen, like whatever. But there's been positive buzz, not from agents, because agents will tell you anything. And I think any sort of counteraction to that actual sourced buzz that we were hearing about Draymond Jones, I think any sort of counter to that is probably coming from agents. Probably coming from representations who either want him to get his or clients in the same category to get theirs, because they're all interconnected, everything's slotted, not just in the draft, but guys are going to look at similar contracts that will be signed for other free agents and say, I want to make sure my guy gets paid. Let's float this out there. And trust me, there's a ton of people in the media that are ready to run with anything that an agent tells them. Like, I've got inside information. No, you've got an agent playing you. You've got an agent using you to get his client what he needs or to start the ball rolling. So if you floated out there that the Carolina Panthers would make a run at Draymond Jones. It's the same thing that we heard with Shelby Harris years ago, because they had the Indianapolis Colts were the one team that would like rip Shelby away, and Shelby Harris is going to have this incredible market for his services. And then Indianapolis traded for DeForest Buckner, and all was quiet. And Shelby went through the first wave of free agency. Shelby went through the second wave of free agency. He was like a third wave free agent, and he just came back to Denver on a cheap deal. Then he got his deal, and then he got traded. But as you see in the NFL, like, I feel that any sort of nervousness about Draymond Jones, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we will be there. Maybe I'm Pollyanna and I'm super optimistic or whatever, super wide-eyed about the Draymond Jones situation. But, just a week ago, before the combine, before the NFL world descended on Indianapolis, before you started hearing some garbage, some of the information you get at the combine is still good. I think the scouting combine is the last bastion. It's the last stop on the road for good information. But that doesn't mean that the bad information doesn't start a little bit early and things get going from agents, what have you. So with the Draymond Jones situation, the Broncos are in a spot where they could say, okay, we can set the market with a new price. They're probably not going to do that. We can have our line in the sand around, let's just say 17 million a year, because lines in the sands, they tend to move, again, where is the information coming from? We're hearing lined in the sand, like the Broncos have a line in the sand and they will not go past that. That's from the team. Now you're hearing on the flip side, agents will then tell you like Draymond's got a bunch of interest and teams are ready to pounce. If the Broncos don't get him done, he'll be one of the hottest free agents out there. Oh man, what a bunch of interest. There's a ton of interest, guys. Did you know there was interest? How about some interest in Draymond Jones? So line in the sand is kind of bogus. There's a general what you want to spend, and let's just say the number 17 million annually. So there's a general number of what you want to spend. There's what you actually will spend, which is probably 18. And then there's, what agents want, 20 million a year. So it's not going to be 17. It's not going to be 20. Yeah, 18, good. Every side wins. Everybody feels good. Draymond feels like he got a top of the market price, which would be near that. The Broncos feel like they got him for less than top of market price, so they feel good about that. So there'll be a coming together that I think happens in this situation, and that will sort of make things right. So if anyone out there is nervous about Draymond Jones, I would say don't be. If anyone is, kind of thinking that he'll move on or what have you, or he doesn't want to be here, like his tone changed from November, and it's part of a losing season. Nathaniel Hackett, a clown head coach, like you would know, like there's not much happiness in that Broncos locker room. I thought Jair Evero did a fine job of kind of keeping everyone at bay, because years ago, Wade Phillips, who we all love, might have been allegedly, or whatever I have to say, like stoking the fire and just being like, yeah, those guys on offense suck. We're okay. Like, we're doing our job. If they only did their job, they suck. We don't. Allegedly, Wade might have been fanning those flames, and that led to locker room division. And there was no locker room division this year, unless it was Russ against the players. There was locker room division there, but he wasn't in the locker room. He was in his office until the final 2 weeks of the season. So in November, when Andrew Mason asks, about Draymond Jones, hey, you're going to be here and want to be here. And he's like, well, I'm here now. I understand why Draymond would feel that way. It's been bad just covering this team. I can't imagine playing for this team, having that losing hang over you. You've never won here. Like, it's their way now. I mean, you could say a couple years there's a downturn, and Vance Joseph or whoever you want to blame it on, and Vic Fangio, and it's just their way now is losing, and their way needs to change. That's why Sean Payton is here, and that's why I believe it will change with Sean Payton. But speaking of change, Draymond Jones changed his tune for before the combine, being like, I'd love to stay in Denver. It's a game. It's a dance. Sides are going back and forth, right? The Draymond Jones side is like, I'd love to be here. Man, we'd really like to work it out, but we're going to explore our options. The Broncos, we've got a line in the sand, but we'd love to have Draymond here. At the end, and it sounds interesting for some, like players just want to know that they're loved. That's all. Just love them up. You love them up with money. That's how you do it if you're the Denver Broncos. Like you want to show Draymond you love him, pay him. And we'll see if they're going to do that. But right now, I still hold steadfast to what we heard before the scouting combine, which the number's around 17. There's a positivity towards getting a deal done. And that was from non-agent fed information. It doesn't mean it's totally accurate. Draymond could leave as soon as free agency opens or whatever. But like, just know there was positivity around Draymond before the scouting combine. There's not really anyone in free agency. Again, I'm writing defensive ends up today, probably out today or maybe sometime tomorrow, denversports.com. Sign up for that Denver Sports Daily. In the draft, you do have some interesting players that will be available and players that, well, just happened to see who was on the All-Star road trip. And there's many reasons why when people say, you know, why do you go to the Shrine game and why do you go to the Senior Bowl? The Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. Why do you go there? Well, it's not to take selfies. It's to put in the work. It's to see on-field level, watch these practices, watch for these players, watch to see who can come out and kind of showcase their skill set. And it doesn't mean that everyone that has a great week of practice at an all-star game is an immediate stud. I saw Trey Hendrickson at the Shrine game in Tampa, and he turned into a stud, all-pro, one of the best rushers in the game. I've also seen players, hell, even Russell Wilson had a bad week at the Senior Bowl, and Russell Wilson was the Super Bowl champion. I think also Russell bounced back in the game. It was weird. You get that sometimes where players like suck during the week, and Russell didn't suck. He was just kind of off. So in practice, they're not real good, and then the game comes around and they're MVP. You know, and sometimes that means something, sometimes it doesn't. Again, it's just more information. It's more data collecting, and it's eyes, it's boots on the ground, it's field level, it's analysis, it's meeting with my scouting friends. It's all these sorts of things. Like, so there's multiple reasons why, but when you see two players that blow up at the combine that are in the range of the Denver Broncos, maybe, hopefully, and then you see, I'm crossing my fingers, I'm not flipping off the camera, and then you see that these players were players that you already saw, one at the Shrine, one at the Senior, you go, oh, okay, good. Go back to your notebook, remember your notes, go back to the film. I have team access to the film for both games, so that's helpful to go back and watch the coaches tape on the practices, on the games themselves, and then further your evaluation. Because at this combine, it is the league's largest job interview, and it is something that makes you go back. It's either a confirmation or it's a reassertion. And I'll explain this. When someone shows up at the combine and they do what they're supposed to do, you just shake your head and go, yeah, that's what I expected. Okay, done. He did everything what he thought. When someone goes out at the combine and they're better than you thought, you have to go back and be like, oh, what happened? Did I miss something on film? Or was this guy training like hyper focused on just this training? And when someone goes out there at the combine and they're not as good as you were thinking, then you go, okay, what's his problem? Does he not prepare good enough? Honestly, there are times where I think the combine can create more questions than are necessary. I do believe there are portions of a combine that are outdated. It's made for TV event now. It wasn't always like that. It used to be more pure. And now it seems to be bastardized a bit because, listen, the stat heads already ruined basketball, basically. I think the stat heads try to do that a little bit with football, although some of these numbers, you know, spark scores, relative athletic scores, these things are interesting. They don't mean that a guy can play or can't play. That comes back to game film. Game film is always number one. Coach's tape is always number one. And for me, the draft, Chris asks in the chat room, and thank you, Chris. When I do these solo shows, I don't look as much in the chat room as I do when Mace is here because I'm monologuing for 30 minutes. But Chris, appreciate you. What's most important this year, free agency or the draft? For me, it's always the draft. It's always the draft. Free agency, you're usually overpaying, and you're usually paying on past production and hoping that that continues. Once in a while, you do get an Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders' first deal with the Broncos, he'd never had a 100-yard game. 4 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Emmanuel Sanders never had a 100-yard game. Now, he flashed, to be sure, and he entered the league with a wide receiver core. I mean, my God, who did they have back then? And that was 2010, I believe, because I saw him at the Shrine game that year with Clint Kubiak, by the way. And I think TJ Ward was at that Shrine game as well. That was in Orlando. For 2 years, the Shrine game was in Orlando. Wasn't real fun in Orlando. But anyway, so like when Emmanuel came into the league, and of course, Antonio Brown exploded and became that dude before the Vontae's perfect hit, and he went nuts. But like Emmanuel never had a 100-yard game. I think he had like a 97-yard game. He never had a 1,000-yard season in 4 seasons with the Steelers. So you got him 3 years, $12 million. This is a bargain for what you got because then he became a 1,000-yard Pro Bowl player. So like for me, to answer Chris's question, it's always the draft because the draft, it's you projecting, it's you developing, it's you seeing natural talent and then getting the most out of that as much as you possibly can, and all on rookie deals. The best way to a Super Bowl is to crush the draft. You can put it to piece it together, and certainly the Rams did that, but now the Rams are, paying the price. So yes, I don't think anyone wants that 1-year Super Bowl run. I don't think anybody really wants that. Like the Broncos with Peyton Manning had 4 years of Super Bowl contention. They should have won 3, honestly, in those 4 years. And the best year of Peyton Manning was 2012. That was the most complete team. 2013 was all offense. 2014 was a disaster, even though they were still a Super Bowl favorite. And then 2015 was all defense because Peyton was done by that time. But like that was 4 years. You put together a 4-year Super Bowl run. It's the most you can ask for by filling the gap that way in free agency. You build through the draft and you can consistently be there. You can consistently hang around. Why are and I hate to bring up their name because I actually don't like them, but the Kansas City Chiefs. And Chiefs fans hate me, and that's fine. I've went over that story. They'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'm a big boy. I got broad shoulders. Like Kansas City and Brett Veach. Brett Veach can draft like 1,000 times better than George Payton. Again, I'm not going to fall over myself about George Payton. I feel like I've maybe gone a little overboard, but it might be a reaction to too many people are just like ignoring what George Payton's done. He's fine. Like he's not fine. He's not fine. He's not good. I don't want to be the guy that goes overboard like and bash George Payton because I like George Payton, but I'm also not going to be blind to what he's done with this team. He screwed it up. He screwed up the draft. And I'm not going to give him credit for Pat Surtain, who was a can't miss pick. Anyway, why is Kansas City like always going to be there? Pat Mahomes, of course, but that's also not messing up in the draft. Their drafts are phenomenal. They got 3 guys that I wanted the Broncos to get? Isaiah Pacheco, Justin Watson. They didn't get Abe Lucas. They got somebody else, I believe. But anyway, so like last year, they were picking like my favorites. And again, it's not because I know more than whatever. It's just like, no, that talent, you had it right there. George Payton, you had it. And you go out and draft garbage. Like, what are you doing? So it's always the draft. It's always the draft. It's not a crapshoot. That's dumb. I know Mike Evans has said that for years, and I'm not saying that Mike Evans is dumb, but that's a dumb opinion. Okay? If you're saying the draft is a crapshoot, that's a dumb opinion. It's a total crapshoot. That means right now, okay, it's a total crapshoot, right? Right now, total crapshoot. That's what you're saying. The draft is a total crapshoot. It's a roll of the dice. So you know what? At number 1 overall, whoever it is, because it may not be Chicago, at number 1 overall, instead of taking Bryce Young, take Max Duggan. It's a crapshoot, right? Anything can happen. That's not the case. If it was a crapshoot, you could literally take any player, 7th round player, number 1 overall, and it's a crapshoot. You just never know. Just whatever. Like, I don't know. Crapshoot means I'm not paying attention to the draft. Crapshoot means I have a weak opinion on the draft. Crapshoot means I don't understand the draft. And again, I love Mike Evans. He's a dear friend. But when he says that, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's absolute nails on a chalkboard to say the draft is a crapshoot. It means you don't understand the process. Sorry, Mike. That's just what it is. And I don't think it's hot take radio. Again, I think hot takes are stupid. I just think it's a really bad and not a well-formed opinion. It's a total crapshoot. Our guys missed in the draft, of course. Tom Brady, Terrell Davis. Like, do I have to bring up everybody? Like, of course. Are there misses? Does it mean that every pick you can just go like that and throw a dart? Who did I get? Hey, it's a crapshoot. It doesn't really matter, guys. Yay. That's just dumb. It's just dumb. Don't be dumb. The draft is not a crapshoot. It's not an exact science, and this is where the stat nerds come back. Like, stat nerds, please stop. Okay, I love you nerds. I'm a nerd. Look at me. I'm surrounded by comic books right now, okay? I love being a nerd. I don't have anything wrong with that. For all the people that still make fun of me for being an adult male that collects comic books, I go, well, I can rebuild an engine with my hands. Like, you're not going to outman me, bro. I love muscle cars. I love Star Wars. I love comic books. I love football. Like, you love what you love. So whatever. But nerds, you've got to stop. Okay? You cannot put football in a box. This isn't baseball. You're not going to collaborate and everything's war and based on this and this average here and over that their average. Like, numbers are interesting. The truth is in the film. Numbers don't tell you what the film tells you. Because testing numbers, your 40 time. How is John Ross in the NFL? What's he on? His 5th team? Is he even in the league now? Like, seriously. Is anyone going to pick him up this year? John Ross is the fastest 40 ever in the history of the combine. Almost a 4.1 40. And I mean, he sucks. It's like, and even on film, like, John Ross never jumped off that way. You thought, okay, there's a chance he could be a Deshaun Jackson type. Jackson did pop off that way on film. But just because you're fast doesn't mean anything. So please, stat guys, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. It's not all about relative athletic score, which are interesting. Those are interesting numbers. I think the Broncos lean on those numbers. I could even make the argument the Broncos lean on those numbers too much. Analytics, like, yes, analytics are important, but they're not the gospel. You don't come down from the mountain with 2 stone tablets that have got a bunch of equations on them. You come down from the mountain with the stone tablets that have film, that are game tape. What do they do when they actually play football? This is the most important thing in the pre-draft process. So the scouting combine is fun. The scouting combine does have relative news and information. You can learn things from the scouting combine. It's almost like the numbers mess again, especially with the Broncos and especially with George Paton. I think there's some paralysis by analysis that's going on from George Paton. That's why he has these misses. Right? And again, some of the math is pretty easy. My whole sales pitch on Tariq Woolen last year was he's 6'4" and he runs a 4.2. I don't know. Do you like a corner that runs 4.2 and is 6 feet 4 inches? Does that sound like a good skill set that you could work with? And I know the argument was at UTSA, Tariq Woolen didn't really know what he was doing. But that's exactly my point. Give Tariq Woolen pro coaching. He's 6'4" and runs a 4.2. Give him pro coaching. He'd probably be pretty good. I never said he'd lead the league in interceptions, and that's what he did. So, again, I think George Paton, like, analytics are cool. They are somewhat relevant. The film matters most. That's what it is for me. And yes, Gregory's like, back to the same old, same old. Yeah, That's because it's the draft season, and here we are. Rinse, repeat again. The combine has some interesting facts that you can pull from it, but it's not the gospel. It's not everything that I think it's cracked up to be. It's certainly not like the most important. No, the most important thing on the All-Star on the pre-draft process is those All-Star games, because that's the last time they're playing football. The last time you're playing football is at the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. And even those games, as important as they are in the pre-draft process, it's an all-star game, so that's like 10% of your grade. 5% of your grade should be the combine. 85% of your grade, I had to do the math real quick because I was like, football is 90% mental and 20% physical. Anyway, so yeah, 5% of your grade's the combine. If even that, might be 1%. 10% is those all-star games, might be 5%, might be 1%, whatever. 90%, 85%, whatever the number is, that's what it is off a game film. That's the most important thing. The game film is what matters most. And so I think the stat nerds have gone a little bit overboard because you try to categorize everything. Everything, it's people. One, from like a broadcasting standpoint, I'll share with you what I've been told. And I was described once as a stat guy, and I'm like, no, please don't put that on me. I'm a film guy. And it was Dusty Saunders that said that. I think in the Rocky Mountain News. So again, I'm dating myself, but I'm old, so whatever. But yes, Dusty Saunders one time wrote about me in the paper, and he was like, Cecil Lammey, stat guy. And I'm like, no, I'm a film guy. Like, from a broadcasting standpoint, people don't like when you throw a bunch of numbers at them, especially numbers that are maybe somewhat difficult to make sense of or aren't explained properly. Like when people talk about DVOA. If you understand DVOA from Football Outsiders, then you understand that's a really cool metric. But also, if I start rattling off DVOA stuff, people will just shut off. They'll be like, yeah, I don't need it. I don't get it. I don't understand. If I say 6 feet 4 inches tall, that is a number, but it's also something you go, oh, that's really tall corner. Most corners will be like 6'1" or 5'11" or whatever, like 6'4". If I say 4'240", then okay, the guy's fast. It's not, you don't want to overdo it with numbers. And I think draft analysis should be the same way. I think if you work for a team, if you work for the Denver Broncos, if you're George Paton, you should not be weighed down with these advanced metrics that don't mean what they need to mean. What they need to have is great film. And if they have great film, then you can get great players. And, the metrics are maybe tiebreakers. You got two guys ranked similarly. The tiebreaker would be, okay, whose metrics are better? All right, boom. Or whose interview was better? Okay, boom. Who, tested better, what have you, like that as a tiebreaker, I can see that working. But as a way to draft, I don't. Relative athletic score, I wouldn't necessarily like. It's interesting, but at the same time, and this wasn't George Paton pick, but like a Justin Sternod, who was coming off injury, who shouldn't have participated in the combine, honestly. He had some of the worst combine numbers in combine history for the linebacker position. Like, not explosive at all, not fast at all, can't change direction fast at all. And again, he was coming off injury, but those testing numbers were awful. Again, one of the worst in history, and they picked him. And then you had the spin. I remember arguing with D-Mac because he liked Justin Sternad, and I was like, nah. And Justin Sternad didn't do anything. Again, I'm not right about everybody, but there's just certain things I think the Broncos have weighed heavier than they should. So there you go. That's a wrap for today's program, everybody. I didn't even get to what I wanted to because I started complaining. And yeah, same old, talking about Tariq Woolen, but I'm not going to let George Paton off the hook. Because it seems to be, and again, it was D-Mac 2 days ago on Coffee Break saying, like, George Paton's done a good job. No, he hasn't. And now Sean Payton's here, and George Paton has to be much better. Much better. The same Minnesota, bro. Go be better. Anyway, hope everyone has a great weekend. I believe in Sean Payton. I'm curious about George Payton. I hope George Payton gets it, but I totally believe in Sean Payton. And I want these Broncos to be great because it's a lot more fun when the Broncos are great. And these last 7 years have not been fun. So hopefully they'll be back this year. We're back. All right, I'm Cecil Lammey. Be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.